Greetings all, D&Disability here. In light of some recent feedback, I'm going to format this video a little differently than I usually would. I'm going to give my D&D conclusions first and put the academic stuff in the back. So those of you that are just here for game advice can take it and move on with your day. So, remember, if you like this format, please make sure to like the video, or I will go back to sprinkling all of the D&D goodness throughout the video to keep you interested with my academic nonsense. And with that in mind, this video is, as I promised last week, the one on disabled gods. So, obviously, I think you should have them in your world. They are an important part of our own historical cultures. They serve as both a representation and realistic depiction of life. Gods with impairments, as some would prefer, also can demonstrate the achievements of a deity, such as the fictional story of Carolian Larithian and Grumsh. Or, in our world, Tyr, who lost his hand to the wolf Fenrir when they bound him in magical cords, or chains, depending on the version. In D&D, gods won't find it easy to undo the war scars given to them by other gods. Grumsh keeps his missing eye, as an example. Equally, those deities may wish to keep their followers impaired as well. See my previous video on clerics with disabilities. And some of you thought that one was a waste of time. Oh no, I'm milking a lot of mileage out of that one. So, those same deities may refuse to heal missing eyes or other limbs, as an example. If a cleric of Tyr loses a hand, Tyr might say no to restoring it. However, disabilities aren't just physical. Deities could also suffer from fits of depression about their love life, such as Hades in Greek myth, anxiety that they don't have enough followers, like a lesser deity that tries to seize power, or they might bounce around from unfinished project to unfinished project, due largely in part to their ADHD and being able to complete any kind of singular task. This could leave their clerics confused and disorganized. Some gods might be unable to understand or cope with emotion. One example would be the god Nerul, which may be completely unfazed by pleas for help. And while this could be easily explained simply by Nerul being evil, it might also be explained by autism, turning the god of death into a somewhat awkward Grim Reaper figure that's just trying to do his job and who doesn't understand why people keep crying and begging for him to help them. The hyperfixation that comes with ADHD and autism can also explain why some gods are masters of a specific craft. Ring making might be all they care about, for example. See Sauron. Alright, so there are some general ideas for you and your games. Remember, disabilities don't need to be negative or for evil deities, real-world gods such as Tyr, Odin, Hephaestus, and the Blind Holder. Right, the Japanese guy Debisu, who was a child born simply without bones, or, depending on the version, arms or legs. He did actually end up regrowing those, but anyway, you get the point. Use these gods to add color to your game and to be inclusive. It gives a good reason for your clerics to reflect their deities. Alright, so now on to the academic stuff, what I'm sure a very small, and I mean very small, percentage of you actually come for. There's surprisingly little I can find with my brief search into deities with disabilities in the time that I had to delve into this topic. So, if you know any, please let me know in the comments. And I mean academic sources, not Wikipedia, not Reddit, not some one-off website somewhere. Sharon Betcher and Jane Draycott have a few things to say about the cultural cryptography and death of God, and about Hephaestus, respectively. Jane Drycott's essay on the post-apocalyptic genre and our own cultural death of God deserves a video in its own right. So look for that eventually, but not anytime soon. Her paper is amazing, but really, really dense, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So, with that in mind, let's turn our attention to Hephaestus and, of course, the Greek world, as this more closely mirrors certain aspects of our D&D games. Hephaestus may have been born with his incapacitated legs, or this may have been a result of Zeus mangling him in anger. But he remains the only openly impaired stroke disabled god in Greek myth. As I said, we can debate whether or not Hades has depression, etc., pretty much until the cows come home. Hephaestus would use his mastery, though, to create assistive technology to facilitate his movement. These technologies range from anything from a simple staff to winged sandals, even a winged chariot, and, of course, probably the most famous, the pair of golden maiden automatas that he created. And what Draycott focuses on is how Hephaestus's mythic creations feature in Greek life and what they show us about Greeks that worshipped him. So if you take nothing away from this video, consider that a god such as Hephaestus is a shining example of what a deity with disabilities or impairments could do to make your world a more believable, more realistic place, and also kind of give inspiration for these kind of creations. So, let's go through what Draycott has to say. One example, of course, their first example is the walking stick. Sticks, staves, and crutches have been used for, of course, since people have been hurting their, or being born with, deformed limbs. And it was said that Hephaestus was associated with fire because just as he could make no progress without a stick, fire could make no progress without wood. There's this idea that craftsmen need to be gimped in a way, that they can't be so good at one thing and yet be perfect in body. As an example, and quoting from the text, one of the medical texts in the Hippocratic corpus, that is to say, joints, recommends a variety of different types of crutch, and it goes through many different types. I won't bore you with the details, but you're seeing some of them here. Draycott then goes on to discuss Hephaestus's winged shoes, where there are some curious depictions in ancient art of Hephaestus wearing winged shoes, a type of footwear usually associated with the god Hermes or the hero Perseus, end quote. While associated with speed, the shoes have real-world references as well, though. Quoting from the text, these winged shoes have a counterpart in the corrective footwear that was recommended for the treatment of congenital conditions such as club foot. Calipes equinovarus, this word, ancient physicians recommended treating this condition as early as possible, end quote. Those with club feet could have their ailments solved when they were young with bandages or have special shoes made to compensate for their condition. Now, on the topic of feet, and I mean, come on, it's the internet. They love feet, right? The Greeks also had prosthetic feet, and so should your D&D world. But some examples include the Greenville Chester toe, which was made from a cartilage, and the Cairo toe, which was made from wood and leather, and was actually found fitted still to a woman's body, by the way. She was between 50 and 60 years old when she died, and they show the variety possible in even the smallest prosthetic device. People often think of the medieval world as a very crude place, but it didn't necessarily need to be. Further, wear and tear on the bottom of these two prostheses, and others, of course, show that these prostheses, or these prosthetics, were worn while walking, rather than just for show. However, more common for children than maybe some adults was the use of carts, chariots, wheelchairs, and other rolling forms of movement rather than prosthetics, particularly for children because, I mean, we've seen how fast kids grow, right? No sooner do you have a foot made that they've outgrown it, and oh look, they need a new shoe size. Okay, so Hephaestus, and quoting from the text, So, and I quote, Hephaestus built a number of chariots, including one with wings for himself that he is often depicted riding in vase paintings. There are a few depictions of young children in ancient literature and, of course, art, using wheeled walking devices similar to modern Zimmer frames, but none with adults, at least, doing the equivalent, and, in the Greek world at least. But there are rather more depictions of immobilized individuals being carried around by chairs and litters, and at least for journeys of a short duration. One example of this is Artemon, an immobilized siege engine designer who was carried around in a litter during the siege of Athens. Here, we should bear in mind that the mythological episode of the return of Hephaestus to Mount Olympus, which is a popular motif of Greek black and red figure vases in the 6th and 5th centuries BC, Hephaestus is frequently shown riding a donkey, end quote, while the other gods rode horses, chariots, etc. Now, this could in part be due to Hephaestus's lower station, but it could also be to just simply mark him as different, or that the gait of the donkey was simply more comfortable for him. As stated before, Hephaestus crafted 2 golden maidens to help him. This link between assistive technology and human assistance is clearly explicit here, and this gets into the idea that it might not have been assistive technology that was used in the ancient world as much as assistance, meaning that in reality, individuals probably sought assistance from their family, their friends and loved ones, and their community members, rather than necessarily from technology. Hephaestus's impairment has included seeing his lameness as compensation for his technological talents. In a way, it's a very visible symbol of his wisdom, of his intelligence. He is not the only physically impaired god of craft in world mythology. We have other Norse myths, Brokkr and Eitri, who is also known as Sindri if you know him by that name, who are dwarves, while another, of course, we have Wayland, is lame. So there was an idea that trades kind of led to impairment, whether deformities from using only one muscle group all the time or exposure to toxic chemicals such as arsenic. Ancient assistive technology is really what Draycott is driving at in their essay. Hephaestus represents that technology. He's a master of creation, but also a symbol for what persons with disabilities can achieve. He shows that with mastery of a craft may come disability. English archers were famously lopsided when it came to their back muscles. For example, we have skeletons of Egyptian craftsmen that are bent from the work that they have done. And these weren't poor laborers either. These were master masons. Maybe there could be an impaired god of creation in your world, one that encourages the crafting of prosthetics and coping mechanisms rather than the removal or idealization of this perfect body. That's all I'm saying. Alright, well, I hope you found today's topic interesting. If you did, remember to like, share, subscribe. Let me know what disabilities the gods of your world have, if any, in the comments down below. I'll see you next week with another video.